What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new English bit. Today, I'm going to share with you my experience with preparing the proficiency exam by Cambridge, which is level C2. I took this exam in Valencia in June and I passed it at grade B. So out of 230 points, I got 215, which is grade B. My best part in the exam was use of English, then it was reading, speaking, listening, and writing in this order. As my results were very good, I decided to make this video in order to give you some advice and some tips on how to prepare this demanding exam. So if you're ready, let's get down to business. So first, I want to talk about the materials you can use to prepare your CPE. The first book I recommend is Student's Book, Objective Proficiency. It's really good. It has 20 units. It works all the parts of the exam. At the end of the book, you have the keys, which is very important to check yourself. Then you have the script and the grammar part. So it's a very complete book and it's really, really useful. When you finish this book, you can also find the workbook, so which gives you extra exercises. Okay, so when you have worked with these two books, you can also find another book, which is Common Mistakes at Proficiency and How to Avoid Them. So this book focuses mainly on your use of English part. For example, in the first unit, you have the difference between will and would. So it's a good one to improve your grammar part. The fourth thing I recommend is downloading the handbook for teachers. This is for first, but on the internet you can find for proficiency. This is really useful because you can find the criteria of assessment. So for example, when you prepare your writing, you can find assessment of writing. So when you go to the exam, you know what you have to write or what you have to do, what examiners expect from you. Then there is also another book, which is Grammar and Vocabulary for Cambridge Advanced and Proficiency. Okay, so there is a lot of material available. You'll be able to find everything below. Okay, and apart from all these books, I also recommend watching videos on YouTube. There are a lot of interesting channels that can help you broaden your vocabulary and learn new expressions, idioms, words. So I would suggest starting with this channel, watching the videos and writing down all the interesting vocabulary in a notebook. So for example, before going to the exam, I was working with a notebook. Okay, I was writing down, for example, all the interesting idioms I came across. I had one part for idioms. For example, another part was for expressions, another one for phrasal verbs, for nouns, for verbs. So I was also using colors to help me memorize the words. So basically, I would recommend getting one notebook for vocabulary, and also I was using another notebook when I was working with the Student's Book, which I had shown before. As you know, there are 5 parts in the exam. The first part is speaking. Then you have use of English and reading, which is done at the same time. Then you have writing, and the last part is listening. So now I'm going to talk about each part, okay? And we're going to start with use of English and reading. So how can you prepare this part? So after working with the books we had spoken about, it's essential to get the books where you can find sample exams. So for example, here we have a sample test 1, for example, reading and use of English. You have 1 hour, 30 minutes to do the exam. So at home, I recommend timing yourself, okay? And when you finish, okay, doing your sample test, it's really important to get this document in order to convert your scores. So for example, here, use of English. Okay, you can see that if you want to pass this exam, you need to get at least 17 points in the use of English. Reading, so here you need at least 28 points. So this is really important when you check your sample tests. Okay, and I also recommend getting more exercises in order to practice part 4 in the use of English, sentence transformation, because it's quite tricky and it's never enough. You know, the more you do, the better. And how can you improve your reading? So read as much as you can. Choose a book you like, or a magazine, or blogs on the internet, or newspapers. So it's really, really important to be used to reading in English in order to perform well in this part. And another piece of advice is to write down all the mistakes you've made in your sample tests, interesting vocabulary you've come across, so any content you consider important. So now let's move on to writing. As you know, the first part, the compulsory part, is an essay, and then in the second part you have different options. You can write a report, a review, an article, or a letter. To do 2 pieces of writing, you have 1 hour and a half, which is 45 minutes per each piece of writing. So first of all, I would recommend watching the video on YouTube that is called Cambridge English Proficiency, Teaching Tips for Writing. It's really helpful. After watching this video, you need to practice. So in the sample tests, you will find tasks for writing, and you can start writing your essays, articles, reviews, etc. So first of all, I was writing without timing myself, but before the exam, I would recommend timing yourself in order to make sure that in the exam you have enough time. And a good idea is to find somebody who can check your compositions. And another useful thing you can do is to write down some typical sentences that can help you to start your essay, for example, to finish, some linkers, so interesting sentences that you can memorize some of them before the exam and try to use, so you have a good start or a good conclusion. And when you are in the exam, make a plan. So for example, introduction, the second paragraph, the third paragraph, conclusion. So first think what you're going to write about, and then you can also make another list with interesting expressions, idioms you could use in your writing. Okay, now let's continue with your listening part. So the same, you need to do as many sample listening exams as you can. For example, when I was doing my exams, I was writing down my scores, so you can see how you're doing, if you're improving. How can you improve your listening? So there is a lot of content, for example, on Netflix or on other platforms. So you can choose different series, films, you can watch TED Talks, which I like very much, or you can listen to BBC Radio or audio books. So you can also watch videos on YouTube. There is so much content you can find on the internet. My piece of advice is to be constant. I'm going to finish this video by talking about the speaking part. On YouTube, you can find some videos of other students doing this exam, and you can also find some comments on their performance, which can be helpful to prepare your speaking. And then in the sample tests, you can find speaking sample exams, and my recommendation is to find somebody or a private teacher who can help you prepare this part. So for example, in my case, I had 5 classes where I prepared my speaking part and my writing part. And I would also recommend making a list with some useful expressions for your speaking exam. For example, some for thinking time or giving examples, adding information, giving opinion. So I hope you liked this video. If you want me to focus on one part in more detail, you can let me know in the comments below and I can make another video talking more about one part of the exam, or if you have any other questions, just let me know. So I really hope you found this English bit useful. If you did, please like it and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and see you next week. Ciao!